Hello, everyone. I am back tonight with another podcast, and this one is going to be a little bit longer than the last one because I actually want to take some time and talk to you about a couple topics that I have on my mind tonight. First of all, you're going to most of the time see me just being comfortable me. I'm just want to make sure that I'm comfortable and that y'all feel comfortable with me as well, and know that I'm just being my genuine self. So I am going to cover why it's important for us to advocate for ourselves and give you a little story on what happened with me and the birth of my first son. And I'm also going to talk about just different things that I have noticed I myself have struggled with over the years, and that I've struggled with just a little bit more now that I am a mom. So I wanted to say good evening, and I hope that y'all take the time to enjoy this, and feel free to leave a comment on if any of this hits home for you as well. So let's get started this evening. So I noticed being a soldier, that a mom, it's made me realize I never actually took the time to truly find myself. I fell into the whole trap of when I was a soldier, so I would go to work, come home, watch TV, eat, and go to bed. I didn't really go out and party or find any hobbies that I actually enjoyed other than just being at home. I always knew growing up that I wanted to be a wife and a mom. I wanted to have my own little family and watch my children grow, and that was my ultimate dream alongside working with children. I was also afraid to try too many new things because I was afraid I was going to fail. I had the fear of failure really bad growing up. So if I feared the failure, why try? Is how I seen it. And now that I'm an adult and I've grown up some, I realized that that was me failing because I didn't put myself out there to try. I was afraid too much of how people were going to react to what I was doing. So I decided to just not do it. I joined the Army fresh out of high school. And like I said, I didn't have any hobbies really outside of work. Every now and then I would go ride my bike or something like that. And then shortly before I got out of the Army, well, about 2 years before I got out of the Army, is when I finally decided to try to find a hobby. I picked up photography. I'm still learning at it. It hasn't really taken off that much. And so it's just kind of more or less become a hobby that I take pictures of my children now. So with that being said, I ended up noticing that my hobby is more along the lines of projects. So I pick up a new hobby that I'm interested in, or a project that I'm interested in, and I do that for a little while. If I get bored, I move on to something else, and then I come back to it later. And that's where I realized that I just get bored easily. And instead of just doing that now, I created this podcast because I can change the topics to fit what I'm interested in at that moment with being a mom, which is my children. I'm always interested in my children. I'm always interested in being a mother. So this is almost the perfect hobby for me. And I do love to read. So reading is a hobby. Like, my husband got me a brand new Kindle that I absolutely love because my Kindle was finally starting to go out on me. So with that being said, I'm still finding myself, are a lot of other moms out there. I will be the first to say I do not have it all figured out, and I feel as though if I ever felt that way, I would probably be wrong if I ever had it all figured out. As moms, we have to learn to take care of ourselves a lot more, and having a hobby and something to do for ourselves is one of the best ways for us to take care of ourselves. And I'm noticing that a lot more. Because if I don't have something to do that's just for me and have that time to step away from being just a mom for a little bit, I become overwhelmed, I become stressed out, I become irritable and overstimulated. And for 2 straight years, I didn't really have a full-on hobby for just myself. And I almost lost myself in motherhood, if that makes sense. I love my children, absolutely love them. And I love being a mom. I love homeschooling my preschooler and watching him grow and run and just flourish. And his personality is amazing. He's one of the sweetest little boys. And my youngest, he's an infant still. He is starting to show so much personality himself. And I can already tell there are a lot of differences between him and his big brother. And so this podcast, I, I want to use it to share information. I want to use it to share being a mom, to share accomplishments. And I want y'all to feel free to share your accomplishments with me as well so that we can all celebrate together. So my reason for saying we have to be able to better advocate for ourselves. When I was pregnant with my oldest, I was 25. I did a lot of research on pregnancy and a lot of research on some of the best items for being a mom and starting out being a mom. And I thought I understood. I went to all my appointments on time. I made sure that I tried to stay healthy. But for the life of me, I could not figure out why I was drastically gaining weight. I did take a gestational diabetes test. They told me to fast before mine. And come to find out, because it was not the 3-hour test, it was just the 1-hour one, I didn't really have to fast prior to it. And my results were borderline being gestational diabetes, but they never tested me further to see if it had progressed any. So I don't know if there was an issue there. I have no idea. But along that, I had swelling. I thought that was normal. I had some cramps every now and then with my pregnancy, but I also have a high pain tolerance, so I just chalked it up to that. I did bring it up to my doctor, and my doctor was like, you're going to have some soreness and stuff like that, but if it becomes even severer, or if it's in this specific area, I can't remember off the top of my head right now what area it was, then call us and let us know. So the weeks progressed. They were not doing labs like they should have for checking my urine every time I came into the doctor's office. I had not had a urine test done since the beginning of my pregnancy. And here I was 38 weeks pregnant. It was my 38-week appointment when I figured this all out. I had gone in weeks prior. Sorry, I hit my mic. I had gone in weeks prior, and they had checked my blood pressure and stuff like that for several weeks. Had been going on. It kept coming up. My blood pressure was high. They would take that small cuff off me, which was the cuff that I'm actually supposed to have because my arms aren't huge, and they would put a larger cuff on me and it would read normal, so they would just send me on about. So I finally had a nurse that, seeing that my feet were swollen, seeing my feet were purple, seeing that the smaller cuff registered that my blood pressure was high, and she's like, we need to get you over to labor and delivery now. And with that being said, they did the 4-hour blood pressure check and they did a urine test on me. I had preeclampsia. And they were admitting me that night because they wanted me to have the baby that night. It did end up getting pushed back to the next day, and then into the afternoon of the next day of me having my son. Mind you, while all this is going on, they're also trying to get me to have them turn my son. My son was a big baby. When he was born, he was 9 pounds, 4 ounces, 22.5 inches long. And they wanted to turn him. And I was like, no, I am not comfortable with that. My stomach is very sensitive. He was in transverse lie. So he was this way across my stomach. And his heart rate was dropping that night. And they never really checked to see why it was dropping. So that was another reason I did not want them turning him. And I'd also known that it could cause stress to him. So I elected to have a C-section because that was the original plan anyways. And so they brought me back for my C-section the afternoon of the next day, and prep was going great and everything else, and then my son's heart rate plummeted. So it turned into an emergency C-section, so my husband never got brought in until after my son was already born. So he did get to cut the cord and everything, which is great. But my son was stuck. So I hear my doctor go, uh-oh, he's stuck. And I'm like, don't say uh-oh, you've got me cut open. Like, you just don't say uh-oh. Not at all. So I ended up having to have a classical C-section so they could get him out. He was kind of lodged up in my rib and stuff. So they did get him out, not without blood going everywhere, but that's besides the point. They got him out, and after they had gotten me all closed up and everything, like, I was freezing. And that's one of the big differences between me having the C-section with my firstborn and then my secondborn is I wasn't freezing after my C-section with my secondborn. So I don't know why that is, but that was the case. They brought me back into my room and everything, and I finally got to hold my son because I didn't get to hold him at all right after he was born because he was in shock. So it was about an hour after he was born that I finally got to hold him, because they had to put him on oxygen for a little bit. So when they brought me into the room, my doctor came in and he goes, "Yeah, you made a good decision because once we got you opened up, you had early stages of placenta abruption. So if we had turned your son, it could have caused some major issues." I was like, yeah, I wasn't comfortable with it anyway. It's something told me not to do that. And I fully believe God was telling me not to do it, that it was a bad idea to have him try to turn my son. It was a crazy ride for me. And I stood firm and I advocated that I did not want my son turned. And I had kept saying that for weeks now by that point because they kept trying to get me to let them turn him. And I said no, that it did not seem like the right thing to do. And thank God I kept saying that and I stuck to my guns on that one because there's no telling what could have happened in that. Because with me having all those health issues that they weren't aware of because they weren't doing the testing that they were supposed to. Mind you, I was in the military at this time, so it was at a military hospital. But it was one of those, I was not having it. I and my husband wasn't having it either. And I feel for my husband because he had to watch the nurses run up and down the hallway, not knowing what was going on in the room with me and our son until afterwards. And he had to come in and, like, they didn't have the curtains all the way around my feet and everything because it turned into an emergency C-section. So my husband had to see me completely cut open, and he was like had to walk around my feet and everything to where they were having my son at. And I feel for him on that one. Like, it was a stressful situation. That's the best way to put it. But God got me and my son and my husband through it. And now I'm aware, and I try to make other moms that I meet that are new moms aware of these situations, that make sure you're getting your labs done. Make sure you're advocating for yourself. Make sure you understand what they're telling you, and do your research, even if you're understanding what they're telling you, to make sure that you fully understand it, because there's so much that could have gone wrong with that situation with me having preeclampsia, that God had his hand on me on that one. But that is my story time for tonight on that one. And I would like to hear about some of y'all's experiences with how you gave birth and everything with your children. And if you had any differences between your birthing and your plan, because I know that plans can change at a moment's notice, and births can change from pregnancy to pregnancy. Of course, I had to have a C-section because I had a classical C-section with my first son, which is they had to go this way and this way to get my son out. So just advocate for yourselves, ladies. And I hope that y'all enjoy this, and I hope to see you in my next podcast. And hopefully, when my sister gets some time, she'll be able to join me for the podcast so as well. And I will see you all next time. Bye.